Eric Hollenbeck, Director of Percussion Studies at Colorado State University. We are here to talk about the 2017 Colorado All-State Band and Orchestra Percussion Auditions. This is the Mallet Etude. For the snare drum etude, I recommend that you actually go see Anthony Cerrone's video of him playing number 6, which is this year's requirement. But go to his website, check that out for the snare drum etude. For the Mallet Etude, we're looking at basically the Allemande by Thomas Baltzar from Garwood Whaley's Recital Pieces for Mallets. And a couple things we want to understand about this one. Allemande basically is a Baroque dance, usually in a relatively moderate to slow tempo. And something you want to be very lyrical on. So the overall kind of sound you want is warm. You want to make sure that you are phrasing. Now, there are no dynamics in the music, but you absolutely need to create line within melody. So that means the dynamics will be always moving and always constant. Basically, you definitely want to listen to a violinist play this, and I recommend there's a really nice recording on Amazon by Patrick Wood. And he plays it somewhere around quarter note equals 100 to 112, excuse me, eighth note 100 to 112. And we're required to play an eighth note equals 116 to 120. So I recommend a little bit on the slower side, about 116 is where I would kind of play this. As far as mallet choice, you can play this 2 mallet or 4 mallet. I choose to do it 4. Because I'm comfortable with that, but you can play it easily with 2 as well. Now that just means if you're holding 2, you got to kind of figure out how to handle basically the downbeat, the first full measure, and the last 4-note chord at the end of line 4. So there's a couple things you have to understand, and what we're trying to do is replicate how a violinist would play this. And a violinist cannot play more than 2 strings at a time. So that basically means that the first 3-note chords you have in the downbeat of the first full measure will be separated. And a violinist would play it this way. They would basically play the first note, the 8th note, then they would play a double stop on C and G, the following 2 notes, and then release with the C written on top of that 3-note chord. So they play and 1. So basically the left hand C and G is a pickup to 1, like 1, a 2, or in this case 2 and 1. And then the 4-note chord at the end of line 4, you can separate the bottom 2 notes. So they actually pull off G, D, and then play a B and G double stop at the top. So you would play. You'll see in the performance how I kind of separate that out, but I'm trying to replicate exactly how the violinist would do it. A couple other things you want to kind of look at in this piece is understanding exactly what key areas and scales that you're playing. Initially, it starts in C minor. And then also we have the introduction of a B natural, so we're moving from a C natural minor scale to a C harmonic minor scale. And then eventually we get to a G major scale and a G minor scale, eventually cadencing on E flat major scale in the second part. So those primary 5 scales that I just mentioned are what you want to kind of look at and practice when you're playing this piece. Now, as far as mallet choice goes, you want something that doesn't have a lot of contact sound in it, so I recommend something that has a soft outer wrap, but has a little bit of weight within the core. And so when it does come to pushing or getting a little louder sound, you're getting more of the core, but your overall generic sound doesn't have any tick at the front of it. I use an innovative percussion mallet called Tom Burritt 3s on the top 3 mallets. And the bottom mallet, I actually use a 2, which is a slightly softer mallet. Now, this piece was written in 1685, which is interesting in the fact that it really starts the Baroque period, which is also basically the birth year of J.S. Bach, who really signifies and embodies the Baroque period. But the primary compositional tool that we have that was really developed in the Baroque period is counterpoint. Now, using this bottom mallet slightly softer allows you to give some counterpoint to the bottom notes versus playing all the upper notes with a little brighter mallet. So I basically have the bottom mallet as soft, the upper 3 a little bit brighter, a little more articulate. And generally you can use that mallet in places to kind of bring off that separation of ideas there. There's a couple places where we have some cadences and it's definitely important with this music that you use a poco retard to kind of signal those places or changes of cadences. We end with a half cadence, which means nothing more than we end on a 5 chord at the end of the first section and then quickly move from that G major chord to an E flat tonic area, basically in the second section. So understanding that will help you, give you some reference and memory to when you're playing about where you're headed within the piece. In this allemande, there's a couple written incorrect notes that you want to correct. And you'll hear it if you listen to the recording of Patrick Wood play. It's basically the 6th full bar of the piece. Beat 3 should be an A flat instead of a written A natural. And that just coincides with the chromatic movement that started on the G prior to that note. The other wrong note is in the second section, which is 5 lines down. On the E of 3 should be a C instead of a D, and that same figure happens in the first section as well. So those 2 wrong notes you definitely want to correct, and hopefully your ear will catch that as well. The big thing with this piece is you want to be lyrical and expressive. And unlike the snare drum, unlike the timpani piece, you're going to take more liberty in tempo with this. And you definitely want to be much more expressive, and this definitely requires the performer to have more input. And it's important that you do that, again, to separate your particular interpretation from the others and to make it stand out. So anyways, be expressive with this, have fun with it, be lyrical, and best of luck on your audition.